Yes.
Question.
So I have a question regarding why am I not my thoughts? And I think Descartes was talking about the philosopher Descartes, who says
Descartes.
that I think, therefore I am. But Descartes says that the awareness that he is thinking means there is something more than the thought. But
yes.
But I have this question, like can an object that is thinking or doing be aware of itself simultaneously? Like it is
Very good question. Very good question.
doing something or
Very good question. So can a flagpole be aware that it's thinking? No, because it probably doesn't think. Right?
yes. Yeah.
Can a jellyfish be aware that it's thinking? Well, is it thinking? It must be having some kind of thought, because it says, well, this is food and this is not food, right?
Yeah.
But would we call that thought? Do you call that thought? Do you know what a paramecium is, or those little aquatic?
Yeah.
Okay. Does it decide? Does it think when it says, okay, this is food and this is not food? Does it decide and have a thought, or does it just do it?
I think it just does it
Okay.
mechanically.
All right. So at what level of let's just make it simple. At what level of biological organization do you think creatures begin to think? In your mind.
When they are aware of themselves, that they are thinking.
Oh, well then what animals are aware of themselves? That's an interesting...
Right now, humans.
Well, what about monkeys and deers and bears when they see themselves in the mirror? Not so much bears. Let's say chimpanzees when they see themselves in the mirror.
I don't know.
Have you seen the experiments in which they put a mirror in the jungle and they wait for the animals to come up and look at it?
Yeah, I have seen cats fighting at their own virtual image.
Because they think it's something. They think it's another cat, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Presumably, maybe they don't like themselves. Okay. Okay, so that's called theory of mind. Is that what you mean? Have a theory of mind?
Yeah.
So if you have a theory of a mind, so repeat the original. Let's go back to basic principle. What's the original question?
My question was, can an object that is thinking simultaneously be aware that it is thinking?
Well, why don't we narrow that down? Can you do that?
Sometimes, yes.
Oh, really? When can you not?
I wouldn't know, because I wouldn't be aware of it.
But you'd be aware of it afterwards. You'd say, hey, I was totally unaware when I did that thinking.
Yes. So, yeah. So I would say between 2 points when I was aware, I would be unaware of things.
Okay, so what criteria do you want to use for these other creatures that you want to know about? I don't know why you want to know about them, but okay, what creatures are you interested in? Because these are very specific questions, right? And it has to do, these are just cognitive functions to some extent, or lack thereof. And of course, there's going to be some speculation because, we can't read thoughts yet perfectly. I doubt we'll ever be able to read them perfectly, but who knows? And so you're asking about other animals. Why don't we start with you, though? Because you're a good animal, right? You've got a brain and a cortex and a midbrain and a amygdala and all that good stuff.
Yes.
Are you aware, or can you be aware of yourself when you're thinking?
It's like switches between those two things. Like I'm
Okay. Are you
thinking,
sure it's you that's thinking, by the way? Or is that an assumption that you're making?
think that's an assumption I'm making.
Okay, well, let's drop the
Yeah.
assumptions, right? Because you're asking a scientific question. Without the
Yes.
scientific, without making any assumptions, right? It's also like the first,
Yes.
what's the first agreement? No, second agreement. So don't make any assumptions. So,
Yeah.
so what Descartes showed was that thinking exists.
Yes.
Do we agree? Thinking exists. Can we say that it happens? Thinking exists.
Yes. Thinking exists.
All right.
Yes.
Now, what's your question about thinking?
Now my question is, can an object that is thinking simultaneously know that it is thinking?
Okay, let's narrow it down. When you say object, that tends to mean something that's not living, right? I mean, not.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mean a living creature?
I was trying to generalize it, but yeah. I
Well,
would
see,
say
because
right now,
remember what it
living
says. Remember what it says in the Tao Te Ching. Those who know do not generalize. Those who generalize do not know. Right?
creature. Yes.
Okay, so let's get down to concrete. So you want to know, can you be self-aware while you're thinking?
Yes.
Very
Yeah.
good. That's the question. Well, can you?
That depends on the definition of simultaneousness.
Okay,
Like,
good. So that's one thing that has to be worked out. And also, we have to make sure that it's you thinking.
yes.
When you hear my words right now, including green, yellow, purple, and red, who's doing the thinking? Who's doing the thinking?
Kind of we both are influencing each other.
Well, you didn't say anything about red, purple, green, and blue to me. So what do you mean both influencing each other? I mean,
So like you are answering something, then new pop thoughts up inside me.
so I
and
could generate thoughts in your head, right?
Yes,
All
essentially,
right.
yes.
So what about your other thoughts? Where do those come from?
From my past conditioning.
Yeah, like from your mother, from your father, from teachers and friends and books and videos and so on. So are those your thoughts?
Yes.
They are? What makes them yours?
I wouldn't say mine, because for me to own that would mean I have to own a lot of things, which can eventually go to start of the universe.
Well, God forbid. So then where are you going to draw the line?
So I don't own it. I would say these thoughts just come.
Okay, they come to whom?
To me.
Okay, but who is you?
Or just,
Or where do they come from?
I don't know. It could
Okay, well,
be
that's the first
something
question, all right?
that's-
Because you're going to want to talk about thoughts and being aware of what you're talking about is meta-awareness, right? You want to know
Yes.
about meta-awareness of thought. Well, first we have to know what awareness is, period, before we can talk about meta-awareness. And then secondly, you keep saying your thought, but that's an assumption, is it not? I mean, didn't you make an assumption that your thoughts come, from you? Do they?
Yeah. So yeah, those are not my thoughts. Those thoughts are generated, I would say, mechanically or semi-mechanically from my past conditioning and the way I interact with my environment.
Are they mechanical? There's people who say that our thoughts don't come from from us, and neither does our consciousness. And there are people that say that thoughts and bodies and dreams and colors and objects of awareness and things like that are just illusions that are independent of our foundational awareness. Can you believe that? That's what they say. Huh? So we got to straighten that out first, because we can't do anything if we're just going to make assumption on top of assumption on top of assumption. Right?
Yes.
So let's go back to the original question and see what we can do with it now.
question. Can I think at the same time or simultaneously be aware of my thinking? I wouldn't.
Well, that seems on the surface, that seems kind of obvious, doesn't it? If you weren't aware of your thinking, you could never remember it. Is that not true? I mean, I'm simplifying it really a lot, and I'm going along with you and just taking your question at its surface. But if you couldn't be aware of your thoughts, how could you remember your thoughts?
It would be just like the dream that I have but never remember it because I was not aware of it. I was just living
Well,
in
I'd be worse. You're making another assumption, is that you were never, you see, when you say you forgot a dream, that means that you were aware of it at one time.
or or otherwise I would say that everyone says that they always dream almost every day, so I'm making the assumption that
Don't make any assumptions. Don't make any assumptions, please. Not in this. See, if you're looking for truth, you can't go on other people's opinions and other people's thoughts. You're thinking with other people's thoughts. That's the problem. Don't use their thoughts. Use your thoughts. I guess they're yours. Let's assume they're yours, okay?
yeah.
Could you remember a thought that you weren't aware of? I don't think so.
No, by definition I can't.
Okay, so then we have an answer to your question.
But can happen, right? Like some thoughts that I'm not aware of, but because of those thoughts, something changed in my environment. Maybe I was not aware that I was angry, but now I can see broken objects. Wouldn't
Oh, so
that
you think thoughts cause anger? Is that true? I mean, that's an interesting hypothesis. Thoughts cause anger. Is that what you're saying?
No, I was just giving that as an example.
Well,
It
that's a
could be
good. I
some
mean,
other
that's how we understand this by example. Or do you mean that anger causes thoughts?
both.
Well, which one is it?
I would say both. Or yeah,
Are you sure not
like
just being lazy?
like someone says
Does a pool
something
cue
and
cause a
then a
pool
thought.
ball to move, or does a pool ball make a? Okay, does the pool cue? You know what a pool cue is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, does
Yes.
I'm going to say stick instead. Does a pool stick
Yeah.
cause a pool ball to move, or does a pool ball cause the stick to move?
Pool stick causes pool ball to move, but if there is a pool stick at the end of the motion of the pool ball, then ball can also cause movement, cause the other pool stick to move.
Wait a minute, tell the last part again.
So I am having a setup of two pool sticks. One pool stick.
No, just one
leads
pool
to-
stick and one pool ball. We want to simplify, right?
Okay, then it depends on what the
It's a game of pool.
Bodies,
It's a game of pool. Nothing
yeah.
fancy.
yeah. Then I would say pool stick. The movement of pool stick influences the movement of the ball. The stick.
And what about the ball, the
Correctly.
movement of the pool stick?
It kind of partially does. I would say it
Partially?
does
Partially?
because
Why would a pool stick move if there wasn't a ball?
Newton's third law.
Well, don't
There
give me
is no
don't give me
stop.
fancy laws. Just explain it to me. Because remember David Hume. You remember David Hume, right? So now, would a
Yeah.
pool stick move if there was not a pool ball there?
No.
Okay. And what determines the direction that the pool stick's going to move? The pool
The
ball.
human.
Well, no, because the human. Well, we're leaving the human out of this experiment for now. But we could say that, right? But let's say the human wants to put the ball in the pocket.
Okay.
So what's going to determine the angle at which the pool stick hits the ball? The position of the pool ball, right?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Now what's going to determine how fast and how hard the pool stick attacks the pool ball? The ball. So now let's just step back out and review. What causes which to move? The pool stick or the pool ball?
What causes what to move? The ball, right?
I don't know. It could be the cue. The cue causes the ball to move, right? The ball
Yes.
causes the cue to move. We can't really separate them out, can we?
No.
So that's what I would call a reciprocal relationship. All right?
Yes.
You may want to look up some David Hume, a great Scottish philosopher on causality. All right, so now let's go back to our question. The question was, do thoughts cause anger?
Yeah.
They can. Right?
Yeah.
Can anger cause thoughts?
But anger can also lead to more thinking eventually.
True. So then let's go back to the original question. What's your original question?
As an original, that would be like, can I think and be simultaneously be aware of my thinking?
And do we have an answer for that yet?
That leads to one other part, right? The definition of simultaneous.
Well, no. It leads to, first of all, who is the you that you're talking about? And number two, how do we know that they're your thoughts?
Yeah, those are not my thoughts. Those
Okay,
are
so
thoughts.
can you be aware of the thoughts of others at the same time?
I mean, no. Like, I can infer some things, but
Well, if I say
really know what
the
they're
cardinal
thinking.
landed at the bird feeder, whose thought is that?
Your
Okay, are you aware of it?
yes.
Are you aware of yourself when you hear me say that and you have that same thought that I inserted into your mind?
So this depends on what do you mean by same thought? Because you may have imagined it in some other way, whereas I would have imagined it some other way, right? So are these two thoughts same?
No, they're not the same because my thoughts are visual. I mean, I'm looking at the object, but good point. All right. So then let's find a thought where we could think the same thing. How about the number 0?
Okay. Yeah.
So now, say 1 0, 2 0, or 3 0. So let me try it out.
Okay.
Say it.
1 0.
Okay. Yeah, that's you because I was thinking 2 0. So, all right. So that's you, definitely. All right. That was your thought.
Yes.
Are you ready for mine?
Yeah.
3 0.
I was thinking 2 0.
Well, but see, now you had to take my thought instead of yours. So whose thought is it? So first we have to figure out what we mean by your thought, and then we have to decide, is it really your thought? Because there's people like Eckhart Tolle and Rupert Spira and many other people who say you imagine these are your thoughts, but they're not even your thoughts. They're not your thoughts.
They just spawn because of my environment and my conditioning.
Who knows? Who knows? We'd have to look at that more carefully. And there's other people, really, really great scientists that say, hey, your liver thinks too. It has to. So do your kidneys. So does your pancreas. It has to think, okay, is this sugar or not sugar? Is this poison or not poison? Should I try and digest this or should I try and get rid of it? Okay. So they do thinking too, right? Just not in words.
But is that thinking at all? How do you differentiate a mechanical way of doing things versus thinking?
To me, they're the same thing, but how would you differentiate them?
With that definition, then thinking is not, could never be mine. It's like a mechanical process that gets generated.
Well, I don't think the problem is the process. I think the problem is when you say mine, what are you referring to? Mine.
I think at the core, I was thinking there is some control over thoughts.
Okay, but who has the control? I mean, we've established that you have control over some of my thoughts. I have control over some of your thoughts. I have no control over these thoughts. I'm looking outside the window, this beautiful blue cardinal and this beautiful blue jay and this beautiful red cardinal. I don't have control over those thoughts, right?
Yes.
Now, so we have to decide two things. We haven't established the provenance of you and your thoughts, right? That's one thing.
Yes.
And we've acknowledged that there are other people very much smarter than us, right? Who don't even believe that thoughts come from ourselves, right? But then that begs the question, when you say my thought, what does my refer to?
Thought, what does my refer to? It's the illusion that I have that I gave birth to those thoughts.
Okay, so then that's, okay, now we brought in a whole other thing, which is illusion. Right? Now, what is illusion?
Something that looks like it, but is not actually it.
Okay, now have you read this guy, Donald Hoffman?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know that he says that the whole world is an illusion. Because we don't have the equipment by which to look at the world directly. Now, he may believe in a simulation hypothesis. He could believe in all kinds of, who knows what he believes in. But remember he said that our minds are basically, what we see is kind of like the dashboard or the what does he call it? The screen of a touch computer, where we just see icons.
Yes. Essentially, yes. Even I was thinking that everything can be simulated. Then, yeah, if my brain could be in some jar or something.
Well, no, that's somebody else. That's somebody else. That's that's a really smart man. That's Boltzmann. Well, a very, very intelligent scientist who hypothesized that. And he did it on the basis of energy. It'd be energetically much more efficient. Right, because they're all into, thermodynamics and conservation of energy. And the main thing, though, was entropy and things like that. And so if you're fighting entropy and you've got to, create a universe, it's more efficient to make one in a brain, make the universe in the brain than make a real universe. Because it would be the same thing. That's called the Boltzmann brain, all right? Now, he got laughed at and all this and that, but on the other hand, he's got a nice gravesite and people love him and think he's great now. Poor guy, he had a tough life, but Okay, so now we covered a lot of territory. So now, but you brought in this new word called illusion. Where'd that come from?
It came from the things that we were discussing right now, that in one hand, I don't really have control
okay.
over my thoughts.
So see, this is the problem. Now let's get down to brass tacks, kind of, right? You keep saying I. Tell me about this I that you keep referring to. What is it, and what are its boundaries?
I don't know.
Okay, so then we can't. So one of the things, if you're going to do just your own thinking, right, your own contemplation, it's kind of like doing philosophy or doing science or doing rational thinking, or let's be rational. so we don't make a big mess. And so we got to define our terms.
Yes.
You know, so we say a pool ball, and we agree on what that is. A pool cue, we agree on what that is. And a pool table, we more or less agree on what that is, right? Now,
Yes.
you're talking about you and ideas and being aware at the same time. We haven't touched time yet. We haven't touched time. But with regard to the ideas, it's not sure that they're your ideas. That's one question that's still up in the air. But more important is that we don't know who the I is, so we can't give a possessive to something that we don't know what it is.
But I came to this reasoning searching for I on the first place. It's like a recursive reasoning.
Oh, you came looking for the I?
Yeah.
Okay, did you find it?
I just want. No, because I was in the process of looking but yeah.
Okay, so then the question's faulty. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, wait a minute. Let's see if we can do something. How about this? Let's try this. Could one be aware of thought and aware of one's self, whatever that might be, at the same time? But see, that's a very different question. That's a very different question. Can I be aware of my thoughts all the time? Or what? I don't know what the question was, but I mean, so see, maybe we could reformulate the question. Let's not give up so quickly, right?
But how is that different than when we were starting with?
Because there's fewer assumptions. Can one? Okay, one. We haven't specified what one is. Let's call it one awareness. Be aware of thought. We didn't say one's thought. We said thought. Right? We didn't say one's thought. So there's no possessive. So there's another assumption we got rid of. Can one be aware of thought and one's own awareness at the same time? Now that's a new element. We're adding time. As the thought occurs. So there's fewer assumptions. Let's see if that works. Can one be aware of a thought at the same time one is aware of awareness? There you go. How about that? Does that help? Can one be aware of thought? Can one be aware of thought?
I think the second part was pretty different. Like in my case, it was, can one be aware of thinking and at the same time be aware that they are thinking?
Well, I mean, that's pretty obvious, no?
Yeah.
Can you not be aware that you're thinking, or that thought is present? Okay, I'm going to present you with a thought. I want to see if you can be not aware of it.
Okay.
The red cardinal and the blue jay are fighting over a peanut piece. Can you be not aware of that thought?
Right, because we are speaking right now, I am aware of it.
Right. Well, okay, but that's the one we're using. You want to have another thought? Give me another thought that you're not aware of.
Wait, if like I had this thought that at a particular time there could be thousands of thoughts, but if I'm not aware of most of them, like if I'm not aware of 900 of them, does that even matter?
Brilliant. Now we're thinking. See how good that is? See how sweet that is? Excellent. Yeah. How many thoughts do you think you're having in a given millisecond?
I don't know.
How would you know?
I'm not aware of most of them.
Well, you don't agree that your thyroid thinks. You don't agree that your brainstem thinks. I mean, but your brainstem is measuring your blood pressure and your Other parts of your brain are measuring your heart rate, and other parts of your brain are measuring your body temperature and making decisions. Hey, do we have enough salt for me to do this? You know, can I burn it? Do we have any extra calories I can burn for the heat? You know, should I put out some more thyroid, or should I change the molecular structure of the thing? So why don't we call these thought? They make a difference. They have inputs. They have to make outputs. Those outputs aren't fixed. They're changed, right? So are those thoughts?
From a third-party perspective, yes, but I can never identify them, because if I'm not aware of them, then...
By the way, that's a revolution in biological thinking that's happening right now, you know, at the beginning of your lifetime. So be aware of it. It's really quite wonderful. We've always thought that thought is words that, you know, we think in our head and that we speak with and write down and things like that. But obviously, that's not all thought is. And then you had an original thought. It was sounds original-ish. You know, who knows where it may. Where did that thought come from? That there could be 999,000 thoughts, and we're only aware of one of them.
I don't know.
I think you did. I think you thought of that.
Yeah, I just thought, what happens to those thoughts that I'm not aware of?
Okay. Well, then what does that? Okay, perfect. Lovely. Great.
That basically means, do they...
Those would be unconscious thoughts.
Yeah, but I wouldn't care about them, right?
Well, according to Freud, they could ruin your life. They could ruin your life. They could choose your wife. And they could cause all kinds of strife. They could create internal conflict, and that's, according to Freud, that's what mental illness was. That's what neurosis was, I mean, you know. That's what caused people to be shy or afraid or neurotic or conflicted or guilty or all this other stuff. Yeah, he was huge on that at the turn of the last century, literally 100 years ago.
So can I say something like that if I'm aware of some thought, then I'm aware that I was thinking that thought. Yeah, that's...
I think you could say something close to that. You know, but I mean, let's see if we can strip down all the assumptions, right? Let's make it more scientific. If awareness of a thought occurs,
yeah,
then what?
Then I'm either aware of it,
if a thought is aware in awareness, then awareness is aware of the thought, right? Okay. Yeah, I think you could say that.
Yes.
Okay, for me, you know, thoughts and birds are the same thing, right? I mean, I know this from my own personal experience. So now, at the moment, there's no bird thoughts in my mind, but the absence of birds is a thought in my mind. But let's take your experiment. So a bird just flew away, and now it's flown away, and I don't remember what kind of bird it was. But the bird presumptively still exists, right?
Yes.
But I'm not aware of it. So your question, I think, is: are there thoughts of which you're not aware? And I think you've stated that there are.
Yes.
Which is a great discovery, by the way, I think. So why are we talking about some thoughts and not others? That'd be the interesting question, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Why do people choose thoughts that make them miserable? Or do they choose the thoughts? Or are the thoughts chosen for them? Does a person have free will when it comes to thoughts?
I think that's where I was going to arrive at. If things are mechanical in nature, then everything's done to them.
Well, what do you mean by mechanical in nature? Give me an example of something mechanical in nature.
Like the ones that you see in physics problems.
Well, when I look at physics problems, I get to quantum mechanical in nature, right? And then when I get to quantum mechanical in nature, and I refer to von Neumann, for example, he says, you know, there's not going to be a collapse of the wave function, using their vocabulary. unless there's consciousness present or something along those lines. So when you say mechanical, you need to start thinking quantum mechanical. Because if you just use mechanical, we can't even fly spaceships and do. We need quantum mechanics now. So let's not use 17th century, 18th century physics in the 21st century, right?
Yeah, but I still think quantum mechanics applies when you are going way too small.
Oh, really?
In scale.
Oh, really? When does it stop? When does it stop? I know people did do that in the middle of the last century, but what happened to that hypothesis?
You can't experiment with it because you don't have such precise instruments.
Okay, I want you to get a flashlight. I want you to get a bright flashlight, and then I want you to get a piece of cardboard. I want you to cut 2 slits in it.
Okay.
And I want you to shine the light through that and tell me if you need, it has to be small. And what do you mean by small anyway? That's relative. So I think that your idea is outdated, my friend. Understandably outdated, but you need to update it.
Okay. So
I mean, Schrodinger's cat, let's look at just Schrodinger's cat. Is Schrodinger's cat big or small?
I think.
What?
Of enough size to be inside that box.
Yeah.
So.
And is Schrodinger's cat a thought experiment? Why didn't they do a Schrodinger's cat experiment about microscopic little mice? Because it wouldn't matter, right? I mean, not for the experiment. That was the whole point of demonstrating. Hey, we can't draw a line between quantum mechanical and non-quantum mechanical. That was just laziness on the part of the early physicists, or denial or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So now it's the 21st century. When you think about, what about the world do we know, how it exists? We do have to think about Donald Hoffman, and all the people that preceded him. That's the senses are not reliable,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And when we think of the material, we have to think about quantum mechanics, because that's our best science.
I think a place where we can have true probabilities, because everything else is approximation of the world. But yeah.
Well, I'll just let that statement stand. But let's go back to your question now. What was the original question? Now we have an interesting thing. So we started out. Could you be aware? Can one be aware of thoughts and of one's awareness at the same time? Right?
Yeah.
And I think we came to the conclusion, well, if you weren't aware of your thoughts, you wouldn't remember them. And then you came up with the notion that, hey, there could be 99 other thoughts that I'm not aware of. And where do those go? And I think that's a good question. But I brought up Freud, right, and the unconscious, and his belief that these thoughts still influenced us.
Yes.
And that's an interesting theory, right? It's a theory, though, just a theory.
No, but I think I brought this a bit earlier as well, right? There could be thoughts that I'm not aware of, but I can feel their effect in the environment. The one that I brought up about that.
Oh, good. Give me an example. Give me an example.
A thought that leads to anger, a thought that I'm not aware of, but that leads to me getting angry and breaking things.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's interesting, because now I thought that you... Okay. Oh, wow, whoa. That's great. Keep going.
So afterwards, I am aware of thoughts, and then I see my environment. Angry.
So maybe it was an unconscious thought that made you angry.
Yeah. So I can't be aware of.
That's very powerful stuff. That's very powerful. That's very powerful stuff. That's psychoanalysis, man. You just invented psychoanalysis. Good for you, man. Freud got all kinds of prizes for that. So, good. So there may be thoughts that influence you, your behavior, and then when you have the behavior, you say, oh, I must be angry.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a hell of a world, man. Is that the world we live in?
I suppose yes.
Probably, yeah. There's probably some truth to that. So can we do an animal model of that? No, because we can't read their minds. But so imagine, okay, so we know that women are attracted to pheromones, right?
Yeah.
There's certain
I
smells,
don't know much.
and men. There's certain smells that make men horny and women horny, and all. I think that's established beyond question.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they don't always register consciously.
Yeah.
So this is an example of thinking without thinking, I suppose. So the receptors probably in the amygdala, they go through the nose and they signal some things to the amygdala, and the amygdala says, "Hey, let's get it on," right?
Yeah.
But the person is unaware of this thinking process.
I would say they were unaware at that time when things were happening, but after things happened,
Yeah.
they can infer what happened, or there were these thoughts that rose up.
Yes, you could do it inferentially. Yeah, sure, of course. And you could do experiments. And they have done them, right? They put sweat, men's sweat of different types, athletic sweat, anxious sweat, fearful sweat, and they put it in little swabs underneath a woman's nostrils, and then they watch her behavior and ask her to rate different things. And there's clearly an effect. There's no question that there's an effect. Right? But if you ask them, were you aware of this effect? They'd say no. So I think that's proof that there is some kind of thinking or some kind of thought processing or some kind of input coming in, processing of that input, and an output in another domain that occurs without any awareness at all.
I think in computer science we call these as demon processes that keep running in the background.
Okay. Demon process. I like that. Demon?
I think the one with DAEMON, not DEMON.
D-A-E?
Yeah, DAEMON.
Oh, diamond process, as in the diamond? Do you know what a diamond is? Look up diamond. DAEMON.
What is a diamond? I think they are just showing. I think it should be done in mythology. Some deity in the Greek religion.
Yeah, it's a god. So you have demon, which is a devil, diamond, which is someone's spirit guide of sorts, I think. And then we have the computer one. What is it? Diamond?
Yeah, diamond. Diamond, I would.
And how do you spell that one?
I think DAEMON, diamond.
DAE, like the Greek one.
Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting. So your diamond could be running your show, right?
I mean,
The Greeks thought that there was, a guide, a spirit, an entity that would guide your journey to your destiny, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
Well, the Greeks weren't slouches, right? At all. So that's an interesting thing. So now we're not the first people to have this notion, right?
Definitely no.
But now you've discovered it on your own, so you're not going to forget it. And this work is that process. That this is what you've been doing is called the contemplation.
Yes.
And maybe you haven't answered the question completely yet, but you're getting closer. And you've learned some things along the way, like all these thoughts that you have that you're not aware of. And then the notion there can be thoughts that aren't yours at all. And then the notion that, those thoughts may be representations of something totally different. The way Hoffman says the outside world is just representations, like icons on a touch screen, right?
Yes.
So this is called contemplation. This is called contemplation. And contemplation along with meditation. And meditation, the only purpose of meditation is to calm your mind down enough to where you can contemplate. Now, the reason for these texts is to give you some material to work with that the centuries, literally millennia, have shown that these are useful things to contemplate. You know? It's useful to contemplate. Think of the end before you begin. It's useful to contemplate before you get rid of the cat, make allowances for the mice.
Yeah.
Or what was it the oracle at Delphi said? Know yourself. I mean, that was what they wrote on top of the oracle, right? I think in Greece, ancient Greece.
Yeah.
And so this process that you've entered into, good for you. This is the deal. This is how you do it.
I think all this thinking had led me to remember one tweet. I believe that there are three types of things, like the things that we know, the things that we know that we don't know, and things that we don't know that we don't know.
And now what about things that we think we know that we don't know?
Yeah.
And what about the things that we think that we know incorrectly or so impartially that we don't really know them at all? I mean, they're so impartial. I mean, they're so partial. So no, I think what you're referring to is three kinds of ignorance.
Yeah.
Okay, not knowing something, which is fine, happens all the time.
Yeah.
All of us have type 1 ignorance. Type 2 is not knowing something and thinking that we do know it, right? And then type 3 is not knowing that we don't know something, thinking that we do know it, and then going to teach it to somebody else. But those are just like heuristics that the Dalai Lama, I think, put together for teaching, early students, right? I think that when you get down to epistemology, there's going to be a lot more than that.
So, what do you mean by knowing something? Because I feel like everything is so complex in this world. There is no way a mind can completely know about something. Or is there?
Name something, and let's think about it.
Sun rising tomorrow.
Yeah, it's not complex. What it is like just unfathomable. I mean, how did we end up in this situation? First of all, is the sun rising?
Most probably yes.
No. The sun doesn't rise. The earth rotates, my friend.
Yeah, from someone who's living on Earth's perspective, it rises, but yeah, technically.
Well, from someone living on Earth, the oceans are flat. So yeah, yes and no. I mean, yes and no. Everything can be looked at so many different levels. It's magnificent, this world we live in. And what's really deadly, and what's really causes great sorrow to me and other people, is that people don't realize what a marvelous, spectacular world. Have you ever known what it felt like to be on this rotating planet when the sun's starting to come up in the morning, and being able to feel the sphere that we're standing on, and then visualize it in relative space, its relative size compared to the rest of the conventional cosmos, this tiny little speck in the middle of nowhere, so it seems. Yeah, so those contemplations are quite powerful, and they are apprehendable, but they can't be put into words. Those are called insights. That's deep understanding. And so, putting aside all the esoteric stuff altogether, some morning you might want to just stand there, maybe look at the North Star or whatever, and then get it the night before, like look at a bunch of pictures of the Earth and the cosmos and the Milky Way and like all the galaxies, and then all the star systems and the clusters and the black holes and the event horizons and the expanding outside edge of the universe, right?
Yeah.
And then get a good sense in your mind of the relative, just relative thought, right? You just the relative position of Earth, right? And then stand there in the morning and watch or feel the ground underneath you rotate in the presence of this star that we call the sun. And you could almost feel how all these ancient civilizations, how they worship the sun, because it's so magnificent. It doesn't move seemingly, right? It's just and we move we bow down to it. Every morning we bow to the sun. The planet does, right? It rotates towards it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so you get these profound understandings of what the ancients must have felt, but not just the ancients. You now, and then once you have that experience, you'll never forget it if it clicks, right? So on one hand, yes, it's infinitely complex. On the other hand, it's infinitely simple, because there's a profound truth in that, of the relationship of not just Earth, but all life on Earth relies on the sun. There's not a plant, there's not an animal, there's not a feature of this Earth that does not rely on the sun. And so then you can see how the first monotheistic religions, the ones in Egypt, right?
Yeah.
How, and for many millennia afterwards, and probably many millennia before, many of them chose the sun as their deity. Now, what they meant by deity, who knows, right? But you can see the awesome, and it illuminates itself. I mean, what does that? Illuminates its own self.
Yeah.
And it is the fire that consumes itself. And it is the fire that gives and provides for life. And it is the fire without which there could be no life on this planet. Right? And these things always fall apart when you try and put them in words. But what I'm saying is that in addition to thinking, what you're doing, good, that's really great, man. It really makes me happy. In addition to thinking, there's also experiencing. And the two go together beautifully, right? The greatest poets were also great thinkers. And the greatest thinkers were poets in their own right? Of a different sort. And just like scientists are truth seekers just as much as mystics are, real ones, we're kind of all in this together, right? And so it's just beautiful. And so I encourage that as much as possible. Live a life that's rich and full, and full and rich of the good stuff, beauty and truth and love and understanding and joy. And don't get caught up in in all the ones and zeros on a dollar bill sign necessarily. Not that there's anything wrong with money, but you know what I'm saying, right? Yeah. Don't get caught up in what everybody else is into. Okay, so with regard to your original question, can I be aware of my thoughts and my awareness at the same time? Well, you're right. We didn't get to the question of simultaneity.
Yeah.
And we didn't get to the question of time. But who knows? Maybe you'll ask about that next week. Okay?
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Good.
Yes.
Good. Keep on going, man. That's all you have to do. Just 1 foot after, just keep going. You'll see.
Yes.
All right?
Okay.
Anything else before we stop?